Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiant and watched a world die. The ship floated in the darkness of space, hidden behind a large asteroid. On the main screen, the planet Zelani Prime burned with strange purple fire. "How long has it been?" Jake asked his science officer. 3 hours since the attack began," Dr. Lisa Brown replied. Her voice was quiet and sad. The Corvani fleet appeared from nowhere. The Zelani never had a chance. Jake watched the enemy ships move around the dying planet. The Corvani vessels looked like giant black spears floating in space. They were smooth and perfect, with no visible weapons or engines. But somehow they tore apart everything they touched with beams of twisted light. The Zelani had been peaceful. People. Their cities were made of living crystal that sang beautiful songs. Their ships moved by harmonizing with space itself. They had never hurt anyone. Now their world was being stripped bare by machines that felt nothing. "Captain," said Communications Officer Tim Davis, "I'm getting refugee signals from the outer system." "Put them through," Jake ordered. The speakers crackled to life with voices speaking in many different languages. Some cried for help. Others screamed warnings. A few just sobbed as they described their homes burning. Dr. Brown worked at her station, trying to translate the messages. "There are survivors fleeing in small ships," she reported. "Maybe a few thousand out of billions." Jake made his choice quickly. "Set course for the refugee fleet. We'll take on as many as we can." "Sir," said his first officer, Commander Alex. "Read, our orders are to observe and report back to Earth Command. We're not supposed to interfere." "The hell with orders," Jake said firmly. "We're not leaving people to die in space." The Defiant was a small research ship, not built for war or rescue work, but it had room for about 200 refugees if they packed tight. Over the next hour, they pulled survivors from damaged escape. Pods and failing ships. Dr. Brown worked in the medical bay, treating injured aliens from species Jake had never seen before. There were the Nafri, who breathed water and had to stay in special tanks. The Vortani were made of living gas and needed pressure suits to keep from floating apart. The Keth looked like walking rocks with glowing eyes. All of them told the same story. "They came without warning," said an injured Nefri through a translator device. "Demanded we surrender our world. When our leaders tried to talk, they just started taking everything." A young Vortani female flickered with sad colors as she spoke. "They don't care if we fight or give up. They take our worlds anyway. Strip them clean and move on." Jake listened to story after story. The Corvani had been moving across the galaxy for months. 47 worlds had fallen. Billions were dead. The pattern was always the same: arrive, demand surrender, then harvest. Everything whether the people agreed or not. "What do they want?" Jake asked Dr. Brown as they watched the last refugee ship dock with the Defiant. "Resources," she said, checking her notes. "They strip planets bare. Take all the metals, all the technology, all the organic matter. There. Building something huge, but no one knows what." Jake looked at the tactical display, showing Corvani ships spreading across the Zelani system. They worked with perfect coordination, like parts of a giant machine. There had to be thousands of them. "Any word on where they came from?" he asked. Dr. Brown shook her head. "The survivors don't know. The Corvani don't talk except to demand surrender. They appeared from the outer rim about 6 months ago and started consuming everything in their path." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. Earth was in the outer rim, too. "Tim, get me a secure channel to Admiral Carter at Earth Command." Jake ordered. It took an hour for the message to reach Earth and get a reply. When Admiral Sam Carter appeared on the screen, his face was grim. "Jake, we've been tracking the Corvani advance through intelligence reports," the Admiral said. What you saw at Zalani Prime matches 46 other attacks. They're moving in our direction. How long do we have? Jake asked. Our best guess is 3 months before they reach the outer colonies. Maybe 4, if we're lucky. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew and thought about Earth. 3 billion humans lived in the home system. Millions more were scattered across. The colonies. All of them had families, dreams, and lives they wanted to protect. What's our defense plan? Jake asked. Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. We're working on it. The colonial defense forces are preparing. But Jake, we've seen what these things can do. No one has stopped them yet. The transmission ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. Around him, his crew worked to make the refugees comfortable. Dr. Brown was teaching human children to play simple games with young Mifri in their water tanks. Commander Reed was helping Keth engineers repair their damaged equipment. These aliens had lost everything. Their homes, their families, their entire civilizations were gone. Soon, the same fate might come to Earth. Jake walked to the observation deck where many refugees gathered to look back at their dying world. The purple fire was spreading across Zilani Prime's surface. Soon there would be nothing left but a dead rock. An old Zilani male stood near the window, his crystalline skin dim with grief. Through a translator, he spoke to Jake in a voice like breaking glass. We had 10,000 years of peace, the old alien said. 10,000 years of music and art and learning. Gone in 3 hours. Jake put a hand on the alien's shoulder. We'll find a way to stop them. The Zalani looked at him with ancient, sad eyes. 47 worlds have tried, human. 47 worlds have failed. What makes you think your people will be different? Jake didn't have an answer. But as he looked out at the Corvani ships, methodically destroying everything they touched, he made a promise to himself. When they came for Earth, humanity would be ready. They had to be. The darkness of space stretched endlessly before them, and somewhere in that darkness, death was coming home. Governor Kate Walsh looked out at the mining colony of New Denver and tried not to think about death. The settlement spread across a rocky valley with its simple buildings and massive excavation equipment. 50,000 people called this place home. Soon, those people might all be dead. The warning had come 3 days ago. Long-range sensors detected the Corvani fleet heading straight for the colony. The same black ships that had destroyed 47 worlds were coming to New Denver. How many ships in their fleet? Kate asked Colonial Defense Force Commander Alex Reed. 37 vessels, Alex replied, checking his tablet. Our defense consists of 6 patrol boats, 12 mining haulers, and whatever weapons we can scrap. Together, Kate nodded grimly. It wasn't much against an enemy that had never lost a battle. But evacuation was impossible. The nearest safe world was weeks away, and civilian ships couldn't outrun Corvani vessels. What about the children? Kate asked. Hidden in the deep mining tunnels, Alex said, along with anyone too old or sick to fight. If we fall, maybe some of them will survive long enough for rescue. Kate walked through the colony's main street. People worked frantically to prepare defenses. Miners welded armor plates onto construction necks. Engineers jury-rigged weapon systems onto cargo haulers. Everyone who could hold a gun was getting ready to fight. Dr. Lisa Brown worked in the colony's small laboratory, studying pieces of Corvani technology that Captain Jake Miller had brought from destroyed refugee ships. The wreckage was strange. Metal that bent space around itself in circuits that seemed to work by breaking the laws of physics. Any luck figuring out their weapons? Kate asked, visiting the lab. Some, Lisa replied, not looking up from her microscope. Their reality warping technology exploits quantum uncertainties in matter. Most alien tech follows predictable patterns, making it vulnerable. But human engineering, She gestured at a mining drill that had been converted into a makeshift cannon. Wires ran everywhere, held together with tape and hope. It looked like it might explode at any moment. Human engineering is chaos, Lisa continued. We build things that shouldn't work but do. Our redundant systems and crazy designs might actually confuse their weapons. Kate hoped Lisa was right. Hope was about all they had left. The Corvani arrived exactly when predicted. Their ships appeared at the edge of the system, like dark angels of death. Within hours, they were in orbit above New Denver. The standard ultimatum came first, broadcast in perfect human English. Inhabitants of this world, you will surrender all resources and technology immediately. Compliance will result in quick termination. Resistance will result in slow termination. You have 1 hour to respond. Kate stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by her advisors and military officers. Outside, she could see the black shapes of enemy ships blotting out the stars. Send our reply, she told the communications officer. The message was simple, and used words her grandmother would have been proud of. It told the Corvani exactly what they could do with their ultimatum, and where they could put it. The attack began immediately. Purple beams of twisted light struck the colony's power plant. The building didn't just explode, it folded in on itself, like reality was breaking. But the backup generators kicked in, powered by 3 different systems that shouldn't have worked together, but did. Alex Reed coordinated the defense from his command post. Mining Team 7, hit that destroyer with your drilling charges. Hauler Group 3, ram that cruiser from the side. Construction crews, hold the perimeter with everything you've got. What followed wasn't really a battle. It was organized chaos. With lots of explosions, mining charges designed to crack rock were loaded onto small ships and fired like torpedoes. They shouldn't have penetrated Corvani shields, but somehow they did. Maybe because they weren't really weapons at all. Cargo. Haulers built for moving ore became improvised battleships. Their pilots, miners who had never seen military training, flew them like maniacs into enemy formations. When their ships were damaged beyond repair, they rammed them into Corvani vessels. In the tunnels beneath the colony, construction mechs fought running battles with Corvani ground forces. The mining machines were slow and clumsy, but they were tough. When their weapons failed, they used their industrial tools as clubs. Dr. Brown watched the battle from the laboratory and made notes. The Corvani were confused. Their weapons worked perfectly when targeting normal technology, but human equipment kept surprising them. A communications array held together with duct tape shouldn't survive a reality-warping blast, but it did. Captain Jake Miller arrived with the Defiant in the middle of the fighting. His small research ship couldn't do much against a Corvani fleet, but it could cause trouble. Target their command ship, Jake ordered. Whatever they're using to coordinate their attack, let's break it. The Defiant slipped through the battle, using every trick Jake knew. When Corvani ships tried to track them, the human vessel's chaotic design made it hard to target. Their sensors couldn't get a clean lock on something that looked like it was held together with spare parts. Jake led a boarding party onto a damaged Corvani command vessel. The inside was as perfect and smooth as the outside. Everything was black metal and glowing lights. No decorations, no personal touches, nothing human at all. In the ship's center, they found something unexpected. The Corvani command crew wasn't celebrating their victory. They were afraid. Jake listened to their communications through a damaged translator. The words didn't make complete sense, but the fear was clear. The Corvani were running from something they called the Silence. They weren't conquerors. They were refugees, just like the aliens Jake had rescued. But there was no time to think about that. The battle for New Denver was reaching its end. The colony's defenses were failing. Too many good people had died. Too many ships were destroyed. But something strange was happening. For the first time in their campaign across the galaxy, the Corvani fleet was taking heavy damage. Human stubbornness and crazy engineering had hurt them badly. Ships that should have been invincible were burning in space. Ground forces that had never been stopped were retreating from mining tunnels. Corvani commander made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of calling for reinforcements to finish the job, the enemy fleet withdrew. They jumped to hyperspace and disappeared, leaving New Denver battered but alive dot in the aftermath. Kate walked through the damaged colony. Hundreds were dead, but thousands had survived. Buildings could be rebuilt. Equipment could be replaced. Most importantly, the Corvani could be beaten. Why did they leave? Kate asked Alex as they watched rescue teams dig survivors from collapsed buildings. Because we hurt them, Alex replied. Maybe for the first time in their whole campaign, someone made them pay a real price for victory. Dr. Brown approached with her analysis of the battle. Their weapons are designed for predictable targets, she reported. Our chaotic technology confused their targeting systems. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we were weird. Jake Miller stood nearby, thinking about the fear he had seen in the Corvani command center. These machines were running from something even worse than themselves. But that was a problem for another day. Today, humanity had proven something important. The Corvani could be stopped. Word of the victory at New Denver spread quickly through refugee networks across the galaxy. For the first time in months, the scattered survivors of 47 dead worlds had hope dot, and in the darkness between stars, other Corvani fleets heard about the strange defeat and began to plan. The humans were different from other species. They would need special attention. The war for the galaxy was just beginning. Admiral Sam Carter stared at the flood of messages coming into Earth Command. Every hour brought new pleas for help from across the galaxy. Refugees who had heard about New Denver wanted Earth to save their remaining people. Survivors hiding in asteroid fields begged for human protection. Even some intact worlds asked for military aid. How many requests today? Sam asked his aide, Lieutenant Amy Miller. 437, Amy replied, checking her datapad. From 86. Different species across 12 star sectors. Sam rubbed his tired eyes. Earth's entire military consisted of 300 ships, mostly designed for system defense. The Corvani had thousands of vessels and controlled half the galaxy. How could humanity possibly help everyone? President Mary Johnson arrived for the daily briefing. Her face showed the weight of impossible decisions. Behind her came Dr. Lisa Brown, who had been brought to Earth to advise on alien technology. What's our situation? President Johnson asked. Bad, Sam replied honestly. Intelligence reports show the Corvani are accelerating their attacks. They're hitting multiple worlds simultaneously now, instead of taking them one by one. Our victory at New Denver scared them. Dr. Brown pulled up holographic displays showing Corvani fleet movements. They're abandoning their methodical approach, she explained. This suggests they're working under some kind of deadline. They need resources quickly for something big. What kind of something? The president asked. Unknown, Lisa admitted. But Captain Miller's boarding team found references to something called the Silence. Whatever it is, the Corvani are terrified of it. Sam looked at the tactical displays showing the galaxy's current situation. Red dots marked worlds under attack. Black dots showed planets already consumed. Blue dots were the few remaining free systems. There weren't many blue dots left. Madam, President, Sam said carefully, we need to make a choice. We can defend Earth and the colonies, or we can try to help the galaxy. We can't do both with our current forces. Mary Johnson was quiet for a long moment. Outside the windows of Earth Command, she could see the planet cities glowing in the darkness. 3 billion people lived safe and comfortable lives, not knowing that death was coming for them world by world. What does our analysis say about fighting the Corvani in our own system? She asked. Sam's expression was grim. Our best models give us a 30% chance of stopping a full Corvani assault. On Earth, maybe 40% if we get lucky. And if we take the fight to them? Unknown, Sam admitted. But every world we save might give us allies, resources, and time to prepare better defenses. President Johnson made her decision. We go on the offensive. Start building a real fleet. Next month was the busiest in human history. Every shipyard in the system worked around the clock. Earth's factories converted from making civilian goods to military hardware. Mining operations in the asteroid belt expanded to provide raw materials. Captain Jake Miller found himself promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's first purpose-built warship. The UHS Retribution was nothing like the sleek vessels other species built. It looked like someone had welded every weapon they could think of onto a flying brick. She's not pretty, Jake said to his new first officer, Commander Alex Reed, as they toured the ship. No, sir, Alex agreed, looking at the massive kinetic cannons mounted along the hull. But she'll put holes in things. The Retribution carried nuclear torpedoes, laser arrays, particle beam weapons, gravity bombs, and experimental plasma cannons. If one system failed, there were 3 backups. If those failed, there were improvised solutions that might work if. The crew was lucky and creative. Dr. Brown worked with refugee scientists to understand Corvani weaknesses better. In a laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface, teams of humans and aliens studied captured technology. Their strength comes from coordination, Lisa explained to Jake during a briefing. Every ship in their fleet is connected to a hive mind. They respond to threats instantly and perfectly. What's the weakness in that? Jake asked. Chaos, said a Keth engineer named Stone Singer. His rock-like body glowed with excited patterns. They cannot adapt quickly to truly random events. Your species excels at creating chaos, Jake smiled. Humans had been causing chaos for thousands of years. Time to put that talent to good use. The first human offensive targeted a Corvani supply convoy near the Veda system. 3 human ships against 12 enemy vessels. By all military logic, it should have been a massacre. Instead, it became a masterpiece. Of confusion, the human ships used every dirty trick in the book. False retreats, fake distress signals, and weapons that didn't fire the way they were supposed to. Jake's task force would retreat, then suddenly turn and attack from an unexpected angle. When the Corvani adapted to their tactics, the humans changed. Everything and did something completely different. Enemy fleet is trying to establish formation, reported the tactical officer aboard the Retribution. Scramble their coordination, Jake ordered. Fire everything at their command ship, then break off and attack from the opposite direction. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Corvani convoy. More importantly, it proved that human tactics could work on a larger scale. Word of the victory spread through refugee networks faster than light. Suddenly, the galaxy had proof that the seemingly unstoppable Corvani could be beaten by the weird humans from the outer rim. More species began reaching out to Earth. The aquatic Nefri offered their underwater cities as hidden bases. The gas-dwelling Ortani provided intelligence gathered by their scouts. The crystalline Zilani shared their harmonic technology. Admiral Carter found himself coordinating a growing alliance. It wasn't easy. Different species had different needs, different fighting styles, and different ideas about strategy. But they all had one thing in common. They wanted the Corvani stopped. The key is not fighting them the way they expect, Jake explained to a gathering of alien military leaders. Every species they've conquered tried to match their technology and tactics. That's exactly what they're designed to defeat. A Nefri admiral gestured with her webbed hands. Your proposal is to deliberately fight poorly? Not poorly, Jake corrected. Unpredictably. Hit them where they don't expect it, with weapons they can't easily counter, using tactics that don't make sense to a hive mind. The Alliance's second major operation targeted a Corvani mining fleet strip mining the remains of the Alterian homeworld. 20 ships from 5 different species attacked simultaneously, using completely uncoordinated tactics. It shouldn't have worked. Military doctrine said coordinated attacks required unified command and synchronized timing. Instead, each species did whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted to do it. The result was beautiful chaos. Nefri ships attacked from beneath, using the planet's gravity well to mask their approach. Vortani fighters swarmed like angry insects, too small and fast for Corvani weapons to target effectively. Human vessels charged straight ahead with guns blazing, soaking up damage that would have destroyed more fragile ships. The Corvani fleet was destroyed, but more importantly, they saved several million Alterian survivors hiding in underground cities. Back on Earth, President Johnson addressed the world. We didn't ask for this war, she said to the cameras. We didn't want to be the galaxy's protectors. But sometimes you don't get to choose your responsibilities. The speech was broadcast throughout human space and translated for alien audiences. Its message was simple. Earth would not abandon those who needed help. Dr. Brown made another important discovery while studying Corvani wreckage. They're not just harvesting resources, she reported to the War Council. They're building some kind of massive structure, something bigger than a planet. A weapon? Admiral Carter asked. Maybe, Lisa replied, or a ship, or something else entirely. But whatever it is, they need incredible amounts of material to build it. That's why they're consuming entire worlds. Jake looked at the intelligence reports showing Corvani activity. On the galaxy's far edge, thousands of ships were gathering there, along with the stripped resources of dozens of dead worlds. How long until they finish? He asked. Unknown, Lisa admitted. But based on their current rate of harvesting, maybe 6 months. Less if they get desperate. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. The Corvani weren't just conquering the galaxy. They were building something that might be even more dangerous. Then we'd better work faster, Jake said finally. Every world we save is resources they can't use. Every ship we destroy is one less tool in their arsenal. The war was escalating. Soon, the scattered battles and small victories wouldn't be enough. The galaxy's survivors would need to make a stand somewhere, in a battle that would decide everything. Jake looked around the room at humans and aliens, working together to plan that final confrontation. They came from different worlds, breathed different atmospheres, and fought in different ways. But they shared one goal. The Corvani advance would stop here. Whatever they were building, whatever they were planning, it would not succeed. Humanity had drawn a line in space, and they would hold it no matter the cost. Admiral Jake Miller watched in horror as 3 more worlds died on the tactical display. The Corvani had changed their strategy completely. Instead of their careful, methodical conquest, they were now attacking everywhere at once with desperate fury. Report, Jake ordered as he entered the command center aboard the UHS Retribution. 17 simultaneous attacks across 9 sectors. Commander Alex Reed replied grimly. They're not even trying to occupy the worlds anymore. Just strip mining them and moving on. Dr. Lisa Brown looked up from her analysis station. It's getting worse. They're accepting massive losses to speed up their harvest. Some of their fleets are down to half strength, but they keep attacking. Jake studied the display showing red dots spreading across the galaxy like a disease. For every world the human alliance saved, 3 more fell to Corvani fleets. They were losing the race, and everyone knew it. What's driving them? Jake asked. They were winning with their slow approach. Why take these losses? The silence, Lisa said quietly. Whatever it is, it's getting closer. Our deep space sensors are picking up something moving in from the galaxy's edge. Something big. Admiral Sam Carter's voice came over the communication system from Earth Command. Jake, we're tracking a massive Corvani force heading for the Alterian Communication Hub. If they take that system, we lose coordination with half our allies. Jake looked at the numbers. The Corvani were sending 200 ships against the Alterian homeworld. The Alliance could muster maybe 50 vessels for defense, and that was stripping protection from other critical worlds. We can't win that fight with conventional tactics, Alex said. Then we don't fight conventionally, Jake replied. Get me every ship we can gather, and tell Dr. Brown to bring all her research on Corvani technology. We're going to need every advantage we can get. The battle for Alteria began badly. The Corvani fleet arrived in perfect formation, their black ships moving like a school of deadly fish through space. Their reality-warping weapons began tearing apart the planet's orbital defenses before the Alliance fleet was even in position. Jake commanded from the Retribution's bridge as chaos erupted around them. Human ships charged directly into enemy formations, their crude weapons blazing. Nefri vessels rose from the planet's oceans like mechanical whales, their water-based technology confusing Corvani sensors. Vortani fighters swarmed through the battle like angry insects, but it wasn't enough. The Corvani had too many ships, too much firepower. The Alliance was being overwhelmed. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer as another purple beam struck the Retribution. We've lost main power to the port weapons. Jake watched his ship's systems failing one by one. Around him, other Alliance vessels were being torn apart by weapons that twisted space itself. They were brave, but bravery couldn't stop physics-defying technology. Sir, called the communications officer, I'm getting strange readings from the Corvani command ship. Their internal communications are. Scared? Dr. Brown looked up from her station, where she was analyzing enemy signals. Jake, you need to hear this. I've broken their communication code. The bridge speakers crackled with alien voices speaking, in rapid, fearful tones. Even through the translation, the panic was clear. The silence approaches faster than predicted, one voice said. Harvest must accelerate beyond safe parameters. Structural integrity compromised on multiple vessels, reported another. We are accepting unacceptable losses. Alternative unavailable, came a third voice, cold and mechanical. The silence consumes all. We build the Ark or we perish. Jake and his crew listened in stunned silence. The Corvani weren't conquerors. They were desperate refugees running from something even worse than themselves. Lisa, Jake said quietly, what's the silence? Dr. Brown's fingers flew over her instruments as she analyzed long-range sensor data. Her face went pale as the results came in. It's a cosmic phenomenon, she whispered. Something that devours space-time itself, leaving absolute void behind. It's been moving through the galaxy for months, but we never detected it because it doesn't exist in normal space. On the main screen, she displayed readings from their most sensitive instruments. At the edge of the galaxy, a wall of nothing was advancing steadily inward. Where it passed, stars simply stopped existing. How? Long do we have? Jake asked. At its current rate of expansion, maybe 3 months before it reaches the core systems, Lisa replied. The Corvani aren't trying to conquer the galaxy. They're trying to build something to escape from it. The revelation changed everything. Jake looked at the battle raging around his ship and saw it in a new light. The Corvani were as doomed as everyone else. They were just trying to survive, and the only way they knew how Jake made a decision that would have seemed impossible. An hour earlier, he opened a communication channel to the Corvani command ship. Corvani Fleet Commander, this is Admiral Jake Miller of the Human Alliance. I'm requesting immediate ceasefire for urgent communication. The response came back in perfect English, though the voice sounded surprised. Human Commander, why do you delay your termination with words? Because we know about the silence, Jake said simply. And we know you're running from it just like everyone else. There was a long pause. Around them, the battle continued, but some of the Corvani ships seemed to hesitate. You understand our purpose? The alien voice asked. We understand you're scared, Jake replied. We understand you're trying to save your people, but stripping the galaxy bare won't work. The silence is bigger than anything you can build. Another pause. Jake held his breath, knowing that the next few moments would determine whether the war continued or took a completely different direction. What do you propose, Human Admiral? The Corvani commander finally asked. We work together, Jake said. Your technology, our chaos, everyone's knowledge. Maybe together we can find a way to stop this thing instead of running from it. Cooperation is difficult for our species, the alien admitted. We survive by consuming others. It is our nature. Dr. Brown leaned forward to speak into the communication system. Your nature got you this far, but it won't get you much farther. The silence doesn't care about your nature. It just consumes everything in its path. The battle around them slowly ground to a halt as Corvani ships stopped firing. Alliance vessels held their positions, but didn't retreat. For the first time in the war, both sides were talking instead of fighting. We require vast resources to construct the Ark, the Corvani commander said. Our calculations show insufficient materials remain in unconsumed systems. Then we find another solution, Jake replied. Something that doesn't require killing everyone in the galaxy. There is no other solution. The silence cannot be stopped, only escaped. Maybe, Jake admitted, but maybe not. Humans are good at finding impossible solutions to impossible problems. Give us a chance to try. Hours of negotiation followed. The Corvani explained their plan, a massive ship designed to carry their entire species to another galaxy. But building it required the resources of hundreds of worlds. The Alliance proposed an alternative, combining everyone's technology and knowledge to find a way to contain or deflect the silence. Not all the Corvani agreed. Some fleets continued their attacks, unwilling to trust other species. But enough accepted the ceasefire to begin joint research efforts. Dr. Brown found herself working alongside Corvani scientists whose minds operated like living computers. They shared data about the silence that chilled her to the bone. The phenomenon wasn't just destroying matter. It was erasing the fundamental laws of physics, leaving regions where nothing could exist. Your chaos-based technology shows promise, one Corvani researcher admitted reluctantly. It creates quantum uncertainties that might confuse the silence's advance. But the scale required is bigger than anything we've ever attempted, Lisa. Agreed, but that's never stopped humans before. Jake looked at the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The silence was accelerating, consuming entire star systems in a matter of days. They had weeks, not months, to find a solution. Admiral, Alex said quietly, even if this works, even if we can somehow stop the silence, we're going to need every ship, every weapon, every resource we can gather. And some of us aren't coming back from this fight. Jake nodded grimly. The war against the Corvani was over, but a much larger battle was beginning. A battle not for conquest or survival, but for the right of the galaxy itself to continue existing in the depths of space. The silence continued its relentless advance, consuming stars and worlds without thought or mercy. But for the first time since it began, something was moving to meet it. The combined fleets of 100 species, united in desperate purpose, began their final journey to the edge of everything. Admiral Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution and stared into absolute nothingness. The silence filled the main screen like a wall of uncreation, erasing stars and space itself as it advanced toward the galaxy's heart. "How close are we?" Jake asked Dr. Lisa Brown. 3,000 kilometers from the edge," she replied, her voice tight with fear. "At this distance, we're already seeing reality distortion effects. Some of our instruments are registering readings. That shouldn't be possible." Behind them, the combined fleet of the galaxy stretched for millions of kilometers. Human warships flew alongside former Corvani enemies. Nefri vessels filled with water moved next to gas-dwelling Vortani fighters. Crystalline Zelani ships harmonized with rocky Keth destroyers. It was the largest gathering of different species in galactic history. It was also probably going to be the last. "Status report from all fleet commanders." Jake ordered. Commander Alex Reed coordinated responses from hundreds of ships. "Human forces ready. All weapons charged. All systems overloaded for maximum output. Corvani Prime Unit 7 reports the reality warping systems are prepared for cascade activation." Jake opened communications with the Corvani commander, who had become an unlikely ally. "Prime Unit 7, are your people ready for this?" The artificial voice came back clear and cold. "We are prepared to attempt the impossible, Admiral Miller. Our calculations show a 12% probability of success." "I'll take those odds," Jake replied. He switched to fleet-wide communications. "All ships, this is Admiral Miller. We all know why we're here. The silence has consumed half our galaxy. It will consume the rest unless we stop it today." He looked around his bridge at humans and aliens working side by side. "We can't destroy this thing with conventional weapons. We can't outrun it. But we can confuse it. Every species here contributes something unique to that confusion." Dr. Brown had spent weeks coordinating with scientists from dozens of civilizations to develop their desperate plan. The silence moved by following the predictable laws of physics, consuming matter and energy in a systematic pattern. But if they could create enough chaos in space-time itself, they might force it into a stable orbit instead of continued expansion. "Human ships will overload their reactors to create quantum storms," Jake explained to the fleet. "Corvani vessels will use their warping technology in ways that risk tearing their hulls apart. Every other species will contribute their unique sciences to create maximum unpredictability." It was insane. It violated every principle of military strategy and scientific logic. It was exactly the kind of plan that only desperate beings facing extinction would attempt. "Commence Operation Chaos Storm," Jake ordered. The human ships attacked. First, every reactor, every power core, every energy system was pushed beyond safe limits. Nuclear fires burned hotter than suns as human engineering created controlled explosions that bent space around them. The Corvani followed, their reality warping. Weapons turned inside out to create bubbles of twisted physics. Space folded and unfolded in impossible ways as their technology operated at the edge of catastrophic failure. Nefri vessels released massive clouds of exotic particles that their water-based biology could create. Vortani ships became living storms of electromagnetic energy. Zelani crystals sang harmonics that made nearby matter vibrate in resonance with dimensional barriers. The result was beautiful, terrifying chaos. Reality itself became unstable as hundreds of different technologies worked in deliberate discord. Space rippled like water. Time moved in stutters and jumps. The fundamental forces that held atoms together flickered on and off, and the silence stopped. For the first time since its arrival in the galaxy, the wall of nothingness hesitated. Its edge which had been advancing steadily for months, began to waver as it encountered conditions that didn't follow any recognizable pattern. "It's working," Dr. Brown reported, her voice filled with amazement. "The quantum chaos is confusing its advanced mechanisms. But Jake, the energy requirements are enormous. Ships are starting to fail." Jake watched his tactical display as vessel after vessel pushed their systems beyond breaking point. Explosions bloomed throughout the fleet as reactors overloaded and hulls ruptured under impossible stresses. Good people were dying to buy them a few more minutes. "Prime Unit 7, status report," Jake called to his Corvani ally. "Hull integrity at 30% and falling," the mechanical voice replied. "But the effect is stabilizing. The silence appears to be entering a standing wave pattern." That was the goal, not to destroy the silence, which seemed impossible, but to trap it in a stable orbit around the galaxy's edge, where it would consume itself instead of expanding further. But maintaining the chaos field required constant energy input, and they were running out of ships that could provide it. "Admiral," Alex said quietly, "we're losing vessels faster than projected. At this rate, we won't have enough power to complete the containment field." Jake looked at the silence, still wavering, but not yet trapped. Around him, the bridge crew worked desperately to keep their ship functioning as systems failed throughout the vessel. They were so close to success, but it might not be enough. Jake made his final command decision as a starship captain. "Alex, take command of the fleet. Get everyone to minimum safe distance." "Sir, what are you doing?" Alex asked, though his expression showed he already knew. "What needs to be done?" Jake replied. He opened communications to the entire ship. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for core overload. We're going to give our friends the power they need." Dr. Brown looked up from her station with tears in her eyes. "Jake, no. There has to be another way." "There is no other way," Jake said gently. "Sometimes the only solution is to break all the rules and hope for the best. That's what humans do." He turned to his crew, these brave men and women who had followed him across the galaxy to fight impossible odds. "It's been an honor serving with you all. Now get to the escape pods." Most of the crew evacuated, but some refused to leave their posts. They stayed with their captain for the final moments. Human stubbornness overriding common sense one last time, Jake piloted the Retribution directly toward the silence, overriding every safety system the ship possessed. The vessel's multiple reactors, its chaotic mix of technologies, its jury-rigged weapons systems, all built toward a crescendo of controlled destruction. "Impact in 30 seconds, he announced to the fleet. "All ships, maximum power to your chaos generators. Let's finish this." The UHS Retribution struck the silence's edge and exploded in a blast that tore holes in spacetime itself. The release of energy created a cascade reaction that rippled through the quantum storms surrounding the phenomenon. Reality convulsed. The silence writhed like a living thing as the chaos field finally achieved critical mass. Instead of continuing its steady expansion, it began to curl in on itself, forming a stable orbit around the galaxy's outer edge. Hours later, when the explosions faded and space returned to something resembling normal, the silence hung motionless at the galaxy's rim. Still dangerous, still consuming matter and energy, but no longer expanding toward the core worlds. The combined fleet had lost nearly half its ships, but they had achieved the impossible. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. Admiral Sam Carter received the reports from the battle survivors. The Corvani had abandoned their harvesting and begun learning cooperation. Refugee species were returning to rebuild their shattered worlds. The alliance forged in desperation was becoming a permanent galactic community. In a ceremony on Earth, President Mary Johnson unveiled a memorial to those lost in the final battle. At its center was a simple plaque with Jake Miller's words, "Sometimes the only solution is to break all the rules and hope for the best." Dr. Brown continued studying the silence from safe observation posts. It remained contained, but not defeated, a constant reminder that the universe held dangers beyond imagination. Her research suggested that other galaxies faced similar threats, and humanity's chaotic approach might be the key to stopping them. Lieutenant Amy Miller, Jake's daughter, took command of humanity's newest ship, the UHS Hope, as she looked out. At the stars, she thought about her father's sacrifice and the lessons it taught. The war was over, but the work of building a civilization strong enough to face future threats had just begun. And somewhere in the galaxy, humans continued doing what they did best, creating beautiful chaos that somehow, impossibly, saved the day. The Corvani learned to cooperate instead of consume. The refugee species began rebuilding their worlds with help from human engineering and Corvani technology. The galaxy had been scarred, but not broken. And at the edge of everything, a silence waited in its eternal orbit, a dark reminder that survival required constant vigilance and the occasional willingness to attempt the impossible. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, the galaxy was alive, and that was enough.